Exposition is necessary to help ground your reader in your story world. But is too much exposition harmful? Like everything else in writing, too much is never good. You want to balance your exposition with all the other elements in your story, and that's exactly what we're talking about today. So here are 5 tips to help you cut down on exposition in your writing. Let's get started. Hey guys, Nour here and welcome back to my channel. Exposition can be a tricky thing to write, especially for newbie writers. Because let's face it, writers love descriptions, and descriptions often lead us to wanting to explain everything we're imagining in our head. And that's how we end up with too much exposition. It happens and we can't always avoid it. But we can cut it down in our writing, particularly in the editing stage. Number 1, a big trick to cutting down on exposition is to first allow yourself to just write it. After all, we can't help it, and the only way to get it out of our system is to just write it anyway. Then, when you've written your heart out, you could go back and consider what needs to be removed from your story, or maybe relocate it to another part of your story. Sometimes exposition is just us figuring out the story as we go, so it's a really important step to take. Just as long as we don't forget to sort through it later and organize it. This leads me to number 2. When you're sorting through your exposition, stop and consider which details must be told right then and there and which can be removed. Think of it this way: what does your reader need to know right at that moment, or else they won't understand what's going on? For example, if you're writing about a person going grocery shopping, does your reader need to know about all the foods that your character loves to buy? Like, every single one?
No. Now get rid of this part here, move this part here.
But the reader must know all this.
Yeah, but you know, they don't need to know it all at once, Nour.
They must understand all this at once. They must know the truth.
Most likely not, so you can remove that right out of the story and probably cut down on so much filler. However, your reader might want to know that your character is grocery shopping because she is preparing for a dinner date with her old high school crush. Basically, figure out what to prioritize and cut the junk. Number 3, cut some exposition out from one scene, but save it for another. There is nothing wrong with doing that as long as the exposition is actually important for the story. For instance, let's say you're world building and end up info dumping in your first chapter. Now you have many pages of exposition that will bore your reader because that block of text isn't interjected with action or dialogue. So what can you do? Well, like tip number 2, stop and consider which details must be told right then and there. What is crucial for the reader to know in the first chapter in order to understand where the story takes place and what general emotional state your character lives in? You could leave in a few details about that world and then save all the other details you initially wrote for another chapter. Recycling doesn't ruin your story. In fact, it makes it better because now you're inserting exposition where it's needed rather than vomiting it all at once and leaving the reader overwhelmed.
Nour, I love it when they have these.
Oh cool, you like the taste?
Yeah, all the ingredients just mesh so well together.
Oh cool.
You know, I love it when they mix chicory root extract, whole grain oats, semi-sweet chocolate, corn syrup, rice flour, whole grain, barley flakes, sugar, vegetable glycerin, canola oil, palm
here we go
kernel oil,
again.
maltodextrin, tricalcium phosphate, soy lecithin?
Please stop. Every time! Number 4, utilize dialogue. Sometimes we forget that dialogue helps us break down exposition, but it totally can. It's not only a way to interject a long block of text and make it less long. It could also help us provide details to the reader through a character's words. For example, rather than writing a long page explaining your world's history and destruction, you could have a character outright bring up a historical fact. Maybe your character walks past a deserted street with his friend in the first chapter. And rather than having a long block of expository text, you could have your character say, "This is where the rebels dropped their explosives to prevent the army from coming through." It sounds like a fact he's sharing with his friend, but it's also being shared with the reader and helping cut down on exposition. And now we know that a war took place in the past and that there were rebels involved. Number 5, don't forget to utilize show don't tell. Of course, exposition is necessary, but like I said earlier in this video, too much exposition throws everything off balance. Which is why it's just as necessary to balance exposition with showing details. Instead of giving the reader a big block of text about how the character feels, show us through their body language, action, and words. We don't need an essay stating that the character felt sad and wanted to cry. But we would love to see the character struggle with tears in his eyes as he tries to blink them away before anyone notices. See what I did there? I just gave you a visual image without mentioning the word sad. This is what Show Don't Tell is all about, and it can greatly help you cut down on your exposition. So there you have it. These 5 tips should help you mow the lawn that is your story's exposition. Let me know in the comments, how do you deal with unnecessary expositions in your writing? I'd love to know. I hope you found this video helpful, and before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Frayne from my shout out tier over on Patreon, as well as all my other patrons. You guys are so awesome. Thank you. And don't forget to follow me on social media to see what I'm up to from day to day. And remember, Nour for President!